Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Hope you're all doing really well and all excited for some good training and whatever else you have got going on. Hope you had a good 2021. I know that may have been difficult, but still, hope you made the best of it. I just wanted to make a little video for you, just effectively to tell you what I'm up to at the moment with regard to training and what I've got planned for the next year. As most of you will probably know, I recently just got back from 2 months off. Just went off grid around Australia in the outback with my 3 girls and got to switch off for a while, disconnect from normal life and normal society and training and all of that. Now since I've been back, I've been really recharged. I just really feel like getting back into training, being productive with video content and my own training as well. So apart from making videos, what have I been up to? And what am I getting up to? What have I got planned? That's what I want to tell you about in this video. Mainly, what have I got planned for the next year or so? Are you going to say hello, Clara? Are you going to say hello? Or no, you're just going to do some more climbing on the chin-up bar, right? Anyway, where was I? What was I saying? Pardon? Okay. So yeah, getting right back into my own training. Still doing forms and qigong, that kind of thing, of course, as always. But I'm bringing my focus of attention into partner exercises, the fighting side of things. Simply because for several years now, I've not been getting enough partner training. Simply because I haven't had access to partners on a regular basis. So I've just been lacking a little bit in that area of my training. I'm now training at least once a week with my training partner Nick on the Gold Coast. So we do a 2-hour session once a week, just partner sparring drills, all martial stuff. And that's good. That's a decent amount of training for the average person. 2 hours of good, solid partner training. It's not a huge amount, but it's enough. If you're just an average person doing it on a sort of hobby level, you'll still achieve a decent amount of skill from a good 2 hours. As long as it's a good 2-hour session, you're not just sitting there doing push hands and chatting the whole time. You've got to really start learning something. So 2 hours, that's okay. It's not a huge amount, but it's okay. It's enough. But not for me. Okay, I'm the head of the WTBA. I'm the guy that Dad left in charge. So if I want to be at the level that I expect myself to be at in my position, I need to train a lot more than just 2 hours a week in partner drills. So when we got back from our travels around Australia, I decided I've got no other option. I don't have a large amount of training partners around here, so I'm going to join the local martial art gym. And it turned out they're actually really highly skilled people, which I was surprised at because we're in a small town, but the guys down there in each style that they teach, they're actually very, very highly ranked in those styles. The styles that they do that I've been training in is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, Muay Thai, MMA, and something they call modern martial arts, which is basically, it's effectively a self-defense based class as opposed to the other 4 which are competitive based styles. So yeah, I've just been going along and practicing all the classes that they run. So I've been training 4 nights a week for 3 hours each evening. I probably won't keep doing quite as much training. I'm just doing all of them at the moment to test them out, see which ones I prefer. I will soon do a separate video explaining the pros and cons and just my general feedback and opinion as to what it's like to go down to other martial art gyms and try to train with them. I don't feel like I've been going there long enough yet to give a good review, so I won't put it on this video. I'll give it another 6 weeks or so. And then I'll put out a video, so I'll give my full opinion as to the benefits and pros and cons and stuff of what it's like to go down to these more common martial arts styles and try them out and spar with them and so on. So for now, just on this video, all I'll say is just before any rumours start, I'm not going to these classes to fill in gaps of our system. Our system is a complete martial arts system. There's nothing missing from it as such. So I'm not going there to, get better at a certain skill or something like that. I'm simply going there because I don't have anyone to train with. So, and I mean, not to say that I won't get better at certain skills. I'm still training with competent martial arts, very good martial artists. So yes, I will improve my skill, but it's not because I want to, learn a different style. I'm not going to start adding, you're not going to come to a workshop next year and go, oh, gee, Eli's teaching Muay Thai now or MMA or something like that. I'm not changing anything about what we're studying because of the training that I'm doing. I'm doing this because I have no one to train with. And anyone out there, if you have no one to train with, maybe you only learn from us from videos or something. Well, you never get any partner training. So you might prefer our system. So by all means, learn our system, learn the drills and so on. But if you're not getting any partner training, you're not really learning how to fight. So it's beneficial if you choose the right class, and this is what my next video will be about, in 6 weeks when I give a review as to what you should look for in a different style for getting partner training out of it, to complement what we do. I'll talk more about that when we get to it. It's also just interesting for me because most of you did other martial arts before starting the WTBA. The majority of people that I teach, they've done something else, whether it's judo or boxing or kickboxing or whatever. They've done something before coming to our system. Even Dad, he did a lot of stuff before he started Taiji and Bagua. But I was born into this stuff, so it's all I've ever known. So even though I love what we do, and I think it's fantastic, I think it's maybe the best. I don't know, it's certainly the best for me. I prefer it, I think. But how do I know? I've never even looked at other martial arts, apart from, watching a few videos. So I thought it'd be very beneficial for me to just see what are the similarities, what are the differences with other styles, get used to them, see like, oh, hang on, this person can't touch me, or this person, geez, I really find it difficult to fight against this person. So feel out what benefits different martial arts may have and what, just all sorts of stuff like that. Because I've never done it. I'm technically in a little bit of a cocoon because I grew up in this style and I don't want to be that. I want to have a better understanding of what other people have practiced. That way, if someone comes to my class and they say, oh, look, I've already practiced boxing or kickboxing or anything, I'll have a base understanding of what that is that they've practiced, rather than just being like, oh, boxing, yeah, that's where they punch people, isn't it? So from that point of view, I'm finding it really interesting, just from a research point of view. As far as the training is concerned and what I'm learning and what I'm not liking, the pros and cons, again, I'll get into that more detail in another video. The only other thing I'll say about this training with other clubs thing is, unless you're a very experienced person yourself, you may need some advice before going to try other... I mean, if you just go and try it, that's not going to cause any harm. But if you want to actually stick with something and practice it long term, you may want to wait for some advice from myself or someone else who may be able to give the advice. Simply because if you're a beginner, you may not know what could be doing you damage. Not as in physical damage, you know what's doing you physical damage, hopefully, but as in damaging your training in poor reflex. So you need to be able to know, right, this particular thing, this is going against my natural reflexes. It's going against the principles of the system I'm practicing. So you're crossing yourself. You see, you're telling yourself to do this, but the principles you already have are telling you to do something else. So if they're conflicting, it's not really very good for your training. You want to find something essentially that is similar in terms of its principles of movement and way of fighting. So again, especially with competition style martial arts, you can often find a lot of conflict there, but there's also a lot of benefit there. You can get a lot of good training out of it. So again, I'll go into detail about that. So once I put that out in about 6 weeks' time, that should give you a good reference as to if you want to go and get some training with other people and spar with some people and get some rough and tumble, which is much needed in your martial art training, you'll have a sort of an idea of what to look for and what to watch out for as far as negative sides of things. So apart from just working on my own training, the main thing I've been really thinking about lately, probably pretty much over the last year actually, is the WTBA syllabus. Not so much what we train, but when we train it. So something you may have heard Dad say many, many times, I've heard him say it so many times, whenever he's teaching methods which seem a little bit exotic, might be in the small sansao or the large sansao or the hand weapons, whatever it is, but he'll always reference to, now you might think these methods might not work so well in a real fight, and that's true. They're too complicated. They're simply too complicated. Fights, real fighting, the simpler the method, the more likely it is to work. So he would always reference to this, that the methods are often too complicated to actually work in a fight. But what he'd say is, when you practice really complex methods, it makes the easier methods that much easier. Right? So you practice something really difficult and complicated, and then you go back to your really basic fighting principles. Is that all I have to do? Like I've been trying to pull off this really difficult technique. Now all I have to do is just move to the side and punch him. So it actually makes the simpler things seem a lot simpler, and physically they are simpler. Now that makes total sense to me. I love that technique, that philosophy. I've used it a lot in teaching music as well. It really does work. However, it only works if you practice the simple stuff first, then do the really complicated stuff, and then go back to the simple stuff. It doesn't work so well if you just practice the complicated stuff or the advanced stuff. It's the simple drills, the simple techniques, they're the most important ones to drill, to practice over and over in repetition and really get them ingrained into your subconscious nervous system so that they become reflexive. So if you're primarily practicing really complicated stuff and only rarely practicing simple things, that's not the most effective way to work it. You need to be practicing, especially in the beginning. Maybe once you get to a very advanced level, it's like, well, you've done the basics enough, so may as well focus on the more complicated things, I guess. But in the beginning of your training, you need your primary focus to be on those simple methods. So to explain what I'm talking about here, let's take the small sansao. Okay, most of you should know what the small sansao is. It's pretty much what everyone practices in our style, as far as the first thing they look at as far as the martial side of things in practice. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, but hang on, the small sansao's, it's not complicated. It's quite simple, actually. It's, take a block, back fist his head. Take a block, back fist. It's fairly simple, right? And it is, yes. It's very, very simple, the small sansao. The small sansao is made up of basically two things, two different types of methods, with a few exceptions, but putting it into a nutshell. Some of the methods are complicated and probably wouldn't work in a real fight, but they're there for different reasons. I'm not going to go into all of that now. I'm not going to give you a lesson on small sansao. They're there for different reasons, to teach you certain things. But they're too complicated for a real fight. So that's where the principle of you're doing them to make the other things easier and what I said before comes into play. The other area is simple, practical, useful techniques. So you could say, well, it already has those simple, practical, useful techniques. But the problem is the simple techniques in the small sansao are advanced simple techniques. They're not basic simple techniques. This is where people get confused as to what advanced means. Most people think advanced means more complicated, more things to do. Instead of just going bang, bang, I've got to go bang, bang and turn my body this way or something. They think it's got to be more complicated. But that's not what advanced means. Oh, sorry, it can mean that as well, but it's not the main thing about advanced. What advanced really means is it takes longer, more advancing, it takes longer to develop it. So if you take a technique and you can show it to a beginner, and they can use it right there and then, at least maybe not under a full-on fighting situation, but under a controlled environment, can they use the technique? If I say, I'm going to throw this punch at you, you're going to do this, can they make it work right there and then? And their re-attack, if they can deliver a decent amount of force that would potentially at least knock me back, or preferably knock me out, if they can do that, then that's a basic technique. It's something that the average person can do right away, or within an hour of training or something. Whereas an advanced technique is not necessarily more complicated. It's simply, you look at it, and the beginner might be able to do it. Oh yeah, I can do that, I can do that. But they would not be able to develop power or the timing required to pull it off under pressure until they've been training for a long time. Because it takes time for your body to develop the necessary tools to be able to pull off those advanced methods. So sticking with the small sensao, let's just quickly go through it in a seated position. Because if I stand up, my head will come off. Let's have a look at it. Okay, the first move, that's an exception. That's relatively simple. Most people can get the idea of that within a short amount of time. So that's one exception. Now let's have a look at the rest of it. Okay, your low block down here. Oh, that's good. I can still swivel, see? On my chair. I can do these. And maybe we could bring this into class and create a new training method. Wheelchair Tai Chi. See, most people only practice the wheelchair Tai Chi on the form, but we could do wheelchair Sansa. Right, so let's take this block. Now the block itself, you could probably get the average beginner to do the block. But let's have a look at what the follow-up is. What is the follow-up? Okay, I've now got to strike from here to here. Look at the distance there to there. That's a very short distance to get power for a back fist. You take the average beginner and put a pad there. You hold a pad up like a focus mitt and put it there on your jaw and say, from that position, I want you to hit me with as much force as you can. It's just going to be that. It's going to be barely anything. It'll just be a tap. That's just going to piss someone off if you do that to them. That's not going to do any damage. So if your strike's not going to do them any damage, it's a useless thing to do, right? So it's too close. It's a beautiful technique. If you were in that position and pulled that off, if you've got Fa Jing, close range power, which takes years to develop, then that is a beautiful technique. It's wonderful. But beginners can't do Fa Jing. That takes years to practice. So basically, techniques which only work if you've got Fa Jing, they're advanced techniques, right? They don't work without Fa Jing. Now you might say, okay, maybe you could just do the block and turn a bit more so that then you've got more distance, right? You've got more swing behind your arm. Okay, now you'll get more power. But now what's going to happen? The only way this technique would work is if it's small circle, if it's fast. Because I've just blocked here, right? I'm not going to explain to you the small sensei. I'm assuming you know the small sensei. He's thrown the punch in there, I've taken the block. His other hand's still free. I've used two hands to stop him, which is, it's a necessity if the guy's a hell of a lot bigger than you and so on. He's going to swing with his other hand. If I go boom, boom, really, really fast, then hopefully I get him before he throws he's done that punch, before he throws whatever is his follow-up, right? But if I take a bigger movement, bang, that punch is coming at least, if not before I throw my punch, at least at the same time. So chances are I'm going to get knocked out by that punch. There's no way, as a beginner, am I going to get this little grab on the wrist well enough to stop him throwing that punch. That takes years of training to really get that working effectively. So again, that's an advanced technique. So from here, you can't take a larger distance because now you're not going to be quick enough before he throws that second strike. So the more simple thing from that position for a beginner's technique would be from that block. The most likely thing that can happen here is that you need to cover that arm because you're not quick enough because you're a beginner. So from there, you'd want to come through with something like that. That's simple. Look, That's my rear shoulder. So most people can generate a good amount of force using that strike, just with a simple palm strike to the head, whatever you want to do, fingers to the neck, anything like that. The other hand can, of course, cover his incoming arm. It might turn into an actual block, or it might just cover his arm, whatever. I'm not giving you different techniques to practice here. I'm just giving you some basic ideas of what is a basic technique and what is an advanced technique. So your small sound sour pung is a very advanced small circle technique. It doesn't function as a basic large frame technique. Whereas something like that works. It's functionable. You teach that to a beginner, they can use it. So that's a basic technique. Carrying on through the form. From here, same principle. That only works small circle. You're not gonna, it's a small circle from here to here, and if you try to get any more wind up, he's gonna hit you with the other hand. So same principle there. The chi posture, that's pretty difficult for the average beginner to actually develop power. Not so much because of the distance, but just because it's weird and complicated. It's not just a simple turning action. So again, takes a fair bit of time to use that. Plus also the chi posture is not something you'd realistically use in 90% of situations anyway, simply because it's a two-handed attack, and that's never really a good idea to hit someone with both hands at the same time. But again, it's a training tool. It teaches you something. I'm not going to go into that on this video. From there, what do we do from there? The blocking part of it, that's achievable by the average beginner, but the follow-up, again, now the follow-up technique is to punch, in and up under it, boom, up under here. That's the proper technique. Forget about that for a moment. Let's just say it's a straight punch into the throat. That's easier, right? You can do it that way, and that makes it simpler, right? But even then, you're still punching from here to here. You're still punching over that much distance. That's only going to work if you've got Fa Jing. And if you make it larger in any way, he's already punched you with the other hand. So again, from that attack, the basic technique would be to attack with the back hand, not the front hand. You can't hit with the front hand if you're a beginner because you simply won't have the power. Following on from there, that one's pretty decent. From there, see, that's straight through. Well, that's the same almost as the first move. You follow it up from there. Okay, that's more of the technique you probably never use in a real street fight. Bang, bang. That one's, well, no. See, that one's more of a training method. It's not really a technique, as in I would never do that in a real street fight. From that position, there's so many other things I would do. I wouldn't do a double press to the chest. That's another area of training, is where something it's done in a way to teach you a certain principle. It's not a good technique. It's a training tool that is there purely to get your vertical spinal movement happening, not to actually ever be intended to use it as a street fighting technique. You never want to attack someone with both hands, because if he blocks you, it means both your hands are gone, right? You attack with one hand. If you hit him, you still knock him out anyway, but if you miss, you've got something covering you. So never attack someone with two hands at the same time. Where do we go from there? Bang. These methods, again, training methods type of movements, you would never block there, pull it across here and then hit him that way. Even then, even if you got from this position, that's still a pretty small distance, just like the back fist. So again, you're not going to get that much power. Much more practice will come from here and just, again, come through with the back hand, or come from here, come through with a low rib punch or something more simple. And then from there, the single whip ones, well, they're the epitome of way too complex. You never, what's this? It's a lovely punch. I'll probably break your ribs with that if I do it properly. But a beginner won't. And also, it only fits in a very, very small percentage of situations. Whereas a simple punch, that fits just about anywhere. So a more practical version would be take the block there, cover with that hand, and just punch in. That's more simple. That's basic tactics. So, sorry, that's not the very end, is it? The arm lock, that's obviously then complicated. Sorry, there's one before that. We do the block up. Again, the swing down, well, that's the same strike anyway. The arm lock one, that's very complicated. You wouldn't use that in a real fight. And then the final methods there. Again, that little method, that's pretty complicated. It's an advanced technique. So, I hope that's given you a rough idea of what I mean there by it's not the most effective way to train to practice advanced techniques in the beginning of your training. You'll get there eventually. You will get there eventually. Even if you only ever practice small circle, practical, really good advanced techniques, you'll get there eventually. But in the meantime, you know nothing. It's kind of like that principle of you know nothing until all of a sudden you know everything. You've got nothing to save you in the meantime. So we want to be able to protect ourselves whilst we're working our way up the ladder. We don't want something that only works after 5 or 10 years of practice. And then there's the other side of the coin in that, let's face it, most people never stick with something and practice that long anyway, right? So at least in that, most people come along, train for a few years and then go on and do something else, maybe start dance classes or something. At least if we train correctly with more basic techniques, they would then be able to get something out of that. They can now actually, deal with basic situations. But if you only focus on the advanced stuff, you effectively have nothing until you've got them perfected, which takes a long, long time. So my plan to remedy this is effectively to take what we practice already. I'm not changing anything. I'm simply just changing when and the focus a bit more on this area of our training rather than this area of our training, that kind of thing. I'm not inventing different methods for us to train. So what I want to do is what I'm currently doing, I'm going through everything that we have. We have so much stuff within this system. So I'm going through it all and saying, right, that's a basic method. That's a really nice basic method. Put that in the box. That's a really nice basic method. Put that in the box. I'm taking all this stuff and putting it into a box. And then what I'm going to do is, once I've got sort of everything in one box, I won't use every single technique in the new package that I'm doing, but I'll then hand pick what I believe to be the most effective techniques and the ones that will teach you certain principles and so on. Basically, that will make a student in those first few years of their training the most well-rounded in their ability to fight. So instead of things like the small sansao, the wudang hand weapons, and other complicated methods being in the foreground, and the other simple methods kind of being a bit scattered and trained here and there, I want to, at least for the beginning of people's trainings, I want to change that around. I want to bring this basic stuff into the foreground, get people focusing on that in the beginning of their training, and taking that other stuff, sansao and so on, taking that and pushing it back a bit. Not to forget about it. Brilliant stuff in those. A lot of good stuff you'll learn from those. But in my opinion, you're going to learn a hell of a lot more in a shorter amount of time. You'll become overall a far better martial artist on every level by focusing on the basic stuff first, and then once you've got that basic foundation, to move on to things like the sansao. When I trained with Dad, I was learning the small sansao from scratch, but alongside the small sansao, I was learning a lot of these other really basic, simple methods, right? And so that's why my training's been good. But again, that's because I was training directly with Dad on a daily basis. He would just go, right, we're going to do this, going to do that. But all those things that we were training, a lot of the time, they didn't have a name. Like the wudang hand weapons or the dragon prawn boxing or, any of these methods which have a name and a set amount of things that you do. They're just techniques, drilling techniques, attack defense methods. They're not named. They're not packaged well. This is why they're a little bit scattered throughout the system. If you try to find what I'm talking about on videos, you're like, well, hang on. There's sansao, there's hand weapons, but where are these other things? There's a bit here and a bit there and a bit over there and a bit down there. They're sprawled out. So my job currently is bringing that all into one package. So I think I'm going to call this these new training methods, not new training methods, they're this new package, the new way that I'm packaging the training methods, the foundations of combat. So yes, it's what it is. It's the foundations of combat. It's giving you all the methods that don't require small circle Fa-Jing and any other advanced concepts, advanced principles to function. They can function under simple, basic turning of the body as far as the power and the timing and that kind of thing. So you can get them working in a pretty short amount of time. I'll bring them all together, put them into a box. Eventually I'll put them all down on video for everyone. So that way, essentially, in my workshops, my classes, I'll get the other instructors following these as well, hopefully, if they want to. They'll be on the video as well. So if, whoever's watching this, when you're training our system, you'll have a nice clear-cut path as to what you should be doing, what steps you should be taking. And effectively, you practice that stuff, the foundations of combat, you work on that until you get the certificate. You pass that grade, right? So all of that stuff is, I don't know how many grades I'll put in to work through that. That's something I'm going to work on and put it all together. But essentially, once you get the grade which says you've done all of that, you're competent at all of those methods, well, that's your key. That's your key to moving on to the more complicated stuff like the Sansaus and whatever else you may want to practice. The other thing I'll be changing around a little bit as far as the syllabus for people to follow is how much focus there is on form work, whether it's the Taiji or the Bagua form. Of course, people who just want to do form, they're more than welcome to just do that in their practice. I'm talking about people who their aim is to learn the whole system. They want to learn the meditation, the Qigong side of things, but they also want to become a competent fighter. They want to be able to protect themselves and be confident in a conflict situation. So to that end, what I want to do is I simply want to bring it back to a more correct level. I just feel that over the last, 15, 20 years or so, we've just done a bit too much focus on form. Even for those people who want to learn how to fight, we've always just done a bit too much form. There's nothing wrong with doing form, as long as it doesn't take away from your martial practice. So yeah, most people, for example, typically learn the entire Yang Lu Chan's form in a year or 2 years max. Whereas Dad always used to say it should take you 6 years to learn the Yang Lu Chan's form. It took me about 5 years to learn it. Now, that seems like a really long time to most people. How can it take 6 years just to learn a form? You'd have to do what? You'd probably have to do one movement every 2 weeks, or I don't know the math, but it'd be a hell of a lot of training on one move, going over and over and over. It might seem a bit boring and monotonous, but that's not the case. Yes, it should take you 6 years to learn the form, but you're not only doing the form. Look at how much other stuff you should be practicing. Look at all the Qigong methods you should be practicing. Look at all the fighting methods you should be practicing. Look at all the self-defense stuff. Look at all the push hands. Look, there's so much other stuff within the system. If you encompass all that stuff and then say, right, I've got 6 years to learn all of that and the form, then you'll start to think, wow, that doesn't seem like enough time, right? It's only for those people who only practice form that 6 years seems like a long time to get the basics of the form down. So this is what I want to do. I want to make sure that only for those people who want to learn the whole system, again, if you just want to do form, you just do form and learn it at whatever pace feels natural for you. But those who want to learn the whole whole system, I will give them a syllabus and a grading system to follow, which the form is only a small percentage. And then they've got this and this and this, all the other stuff. So if you say, for example, let's say you get to single whip in the form, or you get to the second palm change in the Bagua form, whatever. But for grade 3, you don't yet have these things. Don't learn any more of the form. This is the problem I've been seeing a lot throughout the whole world with our system. People always want to learn the next move in the form. So instead of constantly learning a new move in the form, have it clearly set out in the grading syllabus so that if you haven't passed grade 3 or grade 4, well, hang on, grade 3 says I shouldn't be doing anything above single whip. So keep practicing that section of the form, of course, and go through it each morning and work on it and keep it improving. But if you've finished that, but you haven't yet finished whatever other parts of that grade you need to be able to practice to pass that grade, then of course your primary focus should go on that area. because you've gone a bit too fast on that. Or maybe you learned that very quickly because you were already very good at form. So we should be working on our weakest points. That's a good area for your training. Always focus on the thing you're weakest at. Don't just do the thing you're comfortable with all the time. Thank you. So, this just gives you, that's just the basic concept of what I've got going on in my own mind at the moment, what I've got coming up for the next year. Now, I know most of that, what I've been talking about, has been martially based. Those of you who just like doing form and Qigong and that kind of thing. Oh, thank you. Is that an S? Thank you, Clara. Those of you who are more focused on forms and Qigong and the softer side of the art, don't worry. I'm not negating that. I'm not going to ditch the form stuff. I love doing my form practice. It's arguably my favorite part about the training. I love doing that part of it. What you can expect over the next year, what you'll be actually seeing over the next year is a lot of videos coming out, because I'm not doing that much. I don't have a huge following in Australia where I am now, so I'm not doing that much of workshops and teaching and so on. So I'm going to be focusing on my video content. So hopefully lots of new videos will be coming out, probably on more of the solo side of your training, whether that be forms or bag work, those kind of things. I'll probably put a few things out with regard to partner training. But in the background, I'm going to be working with my main training partner here, Nick, and I'm going to be developing this concept I've been talking about, putting it all together. So by the time I get back to the UK, because as you should know by now, my family and I have decided to settle in the UK permanently. Anyway, so once we get back there, I will be setting up permanent classes in the UK, because that's where I'll be living. But then come the next year, so 2023, I'll be hopefully, world order depending, I will hopefully be doing all my usual workshops that I used to do around Europe and the USA, Canada and so on. Hopefully I'll have this new Foundations of Combat concept all sorted out and planned and so on. And I'll be implementing that into the workshops and camps. So you can look forward to that. In the meantime, also, while I'm out here in Flagstone, where I'm not having that much physical contact with students, with all of you guys, I will, now that I'm back and into things, get back into creating a few short videos. Not the proper MTG videos, I'm doing those as well, but just a little, on Facebook and YouTube. Just the short videos, little tip of the day things, and maybe even some follow along lessons, or not lessons, but just follow along training. When I do my morning training, every now and again, I'll just put the camera there. We'll do it live stream on YouTube or something, and I'll notify you all of the timing and that sort of thing. And where we can just do some Qigong together, go through the form together, do the Bagua form together, and so on. Maybe punch the bag together, that kind of thing. Just so we all feel a bit more connected. With the way the world's been going at the moment, everyone's feeling a bit detached. So I'll bring back in some of that follow along stuff. You're climbing? Yeah, so that's all I really had to say to you. I hope I didn't ramble on for too long. I'm really excited about that. The new thought pattern in my own brain. I'm really excited about getting back to the UK and getting back into full-time teaching and physically working with people rather than being in front of a camera all the time. So I hope you're also excited about that. And I hope you had a great 2021. I hope that you are amped about your own training for the next year. Thank you for watching. I hope I've given you some good stuff to think about for the following year. And if I haven't done that yet, then hopefully the videos and follow along things that I do throughout the next year will give you some inspiration for your own training, get you back into it. So anyway, hope everyone's really excited about your own training, and Happy New Year again. Enjoy your day, enjoy your year. Any questions about anything, please write to me. I always love getting emails from you guys. As long as they're not this long, that's sometimes a bit annoying. Just try to keep it short and sweet. I think that's all I want to say, guys. Good stuff. Enjoy your day, and I really hope to see you and train with you very soon. Good stuff, guys. See you soon.